Hey, quick hello. This is an original story from Hidden Revenge Family, and it took a turn you truly didn't see coming. Let's get into it.
The steel latch slammed shut so hard it echoed through the concrete. Then silence. Not the normal kind. This basement was soundproof. No traffic, no voices, no air moving through vents. Just a heavy, sealed kind of quiet that pressed in on your ears. I stood there for a second, letting my eyes adjust to the low emergency light in the corner. Dim yellow. Enough to see shapes, not enough to feel comfortable. They really thought this through. The door behind me was reinforced steel. No handle on my side. No keypad. No hinge exposed. Just a flat slab built to keep things in or out. I turned slowly, taking in the room. Concrete walls, one metal chair, a small table bolted to the floor. No windows. No visible cameras. That didn't mean there weren't any. A soft click came from the ceiling. Then Trent's voice filled the room through the intercom, clean and controlled, like he was reading off a script. "Take your time down there, Cassidy. Think it through." I tilted my head slightly, looking up at the speaker. He continued, calm and cold. "You're not walking out of that room until you sign the document. It's that simple." I didn't answer. A second voice cut in, lighter, sharper, with that familiar edge I'd heard my whole life. "Jocelyn, you always did need quiet to process things," she said, almost amused. "So we figured we'd help." I let out a small breath through my nose. Same tone she used when we were kids, like she was the one doing me a favor. Trent picked it back up. "The paperwork is on the table. All you have to do is sign over your control of the trust. No drama, no complications." Jocelyn laughed softly. "Honestly, it's embarrassing this even has to be a conversation." I walked toward the table without rushing. "There's a military trust fund tied to our grandfather's estate," she went on. "It needs real management, not someone who answers phones and schedules meetings." There it was. "Desk clerk Cassidy," she added, dragging it out just enough to sting. I picked up the paper. Heavy stock, legal formatting, clean signatures already in place, just not mine. Trent's voice dropped lower. "We're trying to make this easy for you. Sign it and you walk out. You go back to your job. Everyone wins." I scanned the first page. Transfer of control. Full authority over the trust assets. Immediate execution. They didn't even bother to make it subtle. Jocelyn clicked her tongue. "Or you can sit down there all night pretending you have leverage." A pause. Then she leaned closer to the mic. I could hear it in the shift of her voice. "No one's coming for you, Cassidy. No one even knows you're down there." I looked up at the speaker again. Still didn't respond. Trent added almost casually, "And before you get any ideas, this room doesn't get signal. No phone, no Wi-Fi, no external access." Another beat of silence. "Take a few minutes," he said. "We'll check back in." The line went dead. The room dropped back into that thick, sealed quiet. I set the paper back down on the table and pulled the chair out just enough for it to scrape against the concrete. Then I sat, slow, controlled. No shaking hands, no racing breath, just stillness. I picked the document back up and flipped through the pages again, this time slower. They really believed this was going to work. That part almost made me smile. Almost. I leaned back slightly and glanced at the door again. Solid, professional, expensive. This wasn't some impulsive move. They planned it, timed it, built the situation around control. They just made one mistake. They assumed I didn't have any. I set the document down and rolled up my sleeve. The watch sat tight against my wrist. Matte black, no branding, no shine. Just a clean surface with a dead screen. To anyone else, it looked like a standard military-issue smartwatch. It wasn't. I tapped the side once. The screen lit up instantly. Minimal interface. No icons, no apps, just a locked prompt. I entered the 4-digit code without hesitation. A soft vibration ran through the band. Then the screen shifted. Protocol 7 Alpha initiated T-500. I watched the timer start. 4:59, 4:58, good. I adjusted the chair, pulling it a little closer to the table, then leaned forward, with my elbows resting lightly on my knees. No rush, no panic, just timing. Upstairs, they were probably pouring drinks by now. Jocelyn would be pacing, checking her reflection and whatever glass surface she could find. Trent would be watching the clock, trying to act like he wasn't worried. They thought 5 minutes down here would break me. I exhaled slowly. They really didn't know me at all. The watch gave another subtle vibration as the system progressed. 4:21. I glanced around the room again this time with a different lens. Angles, structure, signal bounce, possible relay points. Everything was already mapped. I didn't need to move. I didn't need to touch anything else. The watch was doing the work. I picked the document up one more time, holding it loosely in my hand. Sign and walk out. That's what they said. Simple, clean, predictable. I let out a quiet breath, then set the paper back down like it didn't matter. Because it didn't. 3:47, the seconds kept ticking. No sound from the intercom. No footsteps above. Just silence and a countdown. I leaned back in the chair, one ankle resting over the other, and let my head tilt slightly toward the ceiling. They gave me 5 minutes. That was generous. 3:02, I smiled. Not wide, not dramatic. Just enough to feel it. If they had done their homework, they would have known one thing. You don't isolate someone whose entire job is control. 2:36, I tapped the side of the watch once more, not to activate anything new, just to confirm status. Still running, still clean, good. I rested my hands loosely together and let the timer continue. No pacing, no wasted movement. 1:58. Almost there. Upstairs, they were still in control. That part was about to change. 1:12. The room felt smaller now, not because of fear, but because the outcome was already decided. They just didn't know it yet. 0:45. I sat up a little straighter. 0:30. The faintest hum passed through the watch. Final phase. 0:10. I looked down at the screen. 0:05. Then I looked back up at the door. 0:03, 0:02, 0:01, 0:00. The timer disappeared. I let out a quiet breath and leaned back into the chair, completely at ease. Time's up, I said softly, just loud enough for the room to carry it. Then I smiled, because 5 minutes was all I needed. Tell me this, have you ever been the one person in the room everyone underestimated right before everything flipped? I leaned back in the chair and let the timer run as the memory snapped into place. 2 hours earlier, I was standing in a ballroom that smelled like polished wood, expensive whiskey, and ego. My father loved rooms like that. Crystal chandeliers, dress uniforms, medals catching the light from every angle, conversations that sounded important but never said anything real. I stood near the edge of the room with a glass of water I hadn't touched. No one noticed. That part wasn't new. Across the room, my father, General Vance, raised his glass high, pulling attention without even trying. "That's my daughter," he said loud enough to carry across the entire floor. "Major Jocelyn Vance, the pride of the Pentagon." Applause followed. Of course it did. Jocelyn stood beside him in full uniform posture. Perfect smile, controlled. She knew exactly how to hold a room. She always had. "Logistics command isn't glamorous," my father continued, pacing slowly, like he was delivering a speech he'd practiced. "But it's the backbone of everything we do. And Jocelyn, she makes it look easy." More nods, more approval. I watched from where I stood. Not annoyed, not surprised, just observing. He didn't even glance in my direction, not once. Jocelyn tilted her head slightly, soaking it in. "Just doing my job, sir. Always professional, always polished." That was her brand. Trent stood just behind her, one hand casually in his pocket, the other holding a drink he didn't need. He wasn't military, but he fit in well enough. Tailored suit, confident posture, the kind of guy who knew how to stand close to power without earning it. Our eyes met for half a second. He gave me a small smile, not friendly, measured, like he was already planning something. I looked away first. No point playing that game in the middle of a crowd. The speech wrapped up and the room shifted back into smaller conversations. People laughed. Glasses clinked. Someone started talking about procurement delays like it was entertainment. I stayed where I was, then Jocelyn started moving toward me. Trent followed. Of course. She didn't stop until she was standing just a little too close. "Enjoying yourself?" she asked, tilting her head. I took a small sip of water. "It's exactly what I expected." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You should try talking to people. That's kind of how these things work." "I'm good." Trent stepped in smoothly like he'd been waiting for his cue. "Actually," he said, lowering his voice, "just enough. We were hoping to talk to you." I didn't move. About Jocelyn glanced around the room, then gestured subtly toward a quieter corner near the hallway. "Somewhere private." I followed them. Not because I had to, because I wanted to hear how they were going to say it. We stopped near a service corridor where the noise dropped just enough to matter. Trent pulled a folded document from inside his jacket and handed it to me, straight to the point. I unfolded it. Power of attorney, transfer of control. Same structure as the one sitting in front of me right now. Jocelyn crossed her arms. Grandfather's trust needs to be restructured. Quickly, Trent repeated. We've got an opportunity window. I skimmed the document once, then again, no hesitation. No, Jocelyn blinked once like she didn't hear me right. Excuse me, I said no. Trent's smile tightened just a little. You haven't even heard the plan. I don't need to. He took a step closer. This isn't personal, it's strategic. We're moving funds into a procurement channel, medical equipment, high demand, high return, for the military, Jocelyn added quickly. This is about supporting operations. I looked at her, then at him, then back at the paper. Medical equipment, I repeated. Trent nodded. Exactly. I let a small pause hang there, just long enough. Then I looked him straight in the eyes. You sure it's medical equipment? I said calmly, and not covering a $4 million gambling debt in Macau. Silence. Not the quiet kind, the sharp kind that hits fast and hard. Jocelyn's expression froze. Trent didn't move, but his eyes changed. There it was. I folded the paper once slowly. You should really stop using offshore shells tied to the same routing pattern, I added. It's lazy, Jocelyn grabbed my arm nails, pressing just enough to make a point. What are you talking about? I pulled my arm free without force. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Trent exhaled through his nose, composure slipping for the first time. Careful, I met his gaze again. Or what? For a second, no one spoke. Then Jocelyn stepped in, voice sharper now. You're out of line. No, I said, you're out of options. That landed. I saw it in her shoulders, in the way she shifted her weight. Trent glanced toward the main room, then back at me, recalculating. Fast. Always fast. Then he smiled again. Different this time. Forced. Okay, he said lightly. Let's not make a scene. I'm not. Jocelyn leaned closer, lowering her voice. You're not thinking clearly. I almost laughed. I'm thinking very clearly. She looked at Trent. That was the moment, the shift, panic just under the surface. He nodded once. Decision made. Jocelyn's tone flipped instantly louder now, sharp enough to cut through nearby conversations. Cassidy, you need to calm down. A couple of heads turned. I didn't react. Trent stepped in beside her. Hey, it's okay, he said, putting a hand out like he was trying to help. You're getting worked up. I looked at him. Didn't move. Didn't blink. I'm not. Jocelyn raised her voice just a little more. You're making accusations that don't make sense. More people were watching now. Good. Trent leaned in, lowering his voice again, but the tone had changed completely. We're trying to help you. No, I said quietly. You're trying to fix your mess. That was it. Jocelyn grabbed my arm again, harder this time. Okay, we're done, she said. You need a minute. I didn't resist. I let them guide me. That was important. We moved fast through the hallway, away from the noise, past the staff corridor, down toward the private wing of the house. No one stopped us. No one questioned it. Why would they? From the outside, it looked like concerned family handling a problem. The door to the basement opened. Cold air hit first, then concrete. Trent stepped ahead, holding the door. Jocelyn tightened her grip on my arm. Just cool off, she said under her breath. I stepped inside. No hesitation, no argument. That confused her. Good. The second I crossed the threshold, Trent pulled the door shut behind me. The steel latch slammed. And just like that, the show upstairs kept going, while they thought they had control. Back in the chair, I glanced down at my watch. T-300 right on schedule. The seconds kept ticking, and I let my eyes settle on the dim light while the real reason played back in my head. This didn't start tonight. It started 72 hours ago in a secure room where nobody raised their voice and nothing got missed. I was at my station inside a classified network running a routine sweep across contractor pipelines tied to Pentagon procurement. Nothing unusual on paper, just another audit cycle before the next federal review. Except something didn't line up. At first it was small, timing discrepancies, shipment logs that cleared too fast, approval chains that looked correct but felt rushed. Most people would have skimmed past it. I didn't. I flagged one contract tied to a mid-tier vendor, Trent's company. On record, they specialized in medical support equipment, field kits, trauma supplies, protective materials, clean profile, solid history, no red flags. That's what made it interesting. I pulled the deeper logs. Routing paths, authorization signatures, internal override requests. That's where her name showed up. Major Jocelyn Vance. Not once, repeatedly. I leaned back in my chair that night and stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then I dug further. Because when my sister's name shows up in a pattern like that, it's never random. The system didn't block me. It didn't even slow me down. I had clearance, higher than she realized. I opened the financial routing layer. That's where it broke. Funds were being redirected through a sequence of shell accounts clean at first glance, but all pointing back to one central entity. Trent's offshore structure. Not hidden well enough. Not from me. I traced the flow. Contract approval to procurement allocation to third-party vendor to offshore transfer. And then, nothing. No product verification. No inspection logs. No field validation. That's not how military supply chains work. I kept going. Then I found the field reports. That's where it stopped being about money. A unit deployed in Syria had filed an incident report. Armor failure. Not catastrophic, but close. The plating didn't hold under impact the way it was supposed to. 2 soldiers injured. 1 nearly didn't make it. I pulled the equipment batch number, matched it to the contract, matched the contract to the vendor, Trent. Then I matched the approval signature, Jocelyn. I sat there in silence for a full 10 seconds. No emotion, just facts locking into place. She signed off on equipment that wasn't properly verified. He delivered gear that didn't meet standard. And they both pushed it through the system like it was routine. I checked the timeline. They'd been running this for months. Small batches, just enough to stay under radar. Just enough to build a cushion. Then I saw the spike. Recent, large, desperate. That's when the numbers started getting ugly. The offshore accounts weren't just holding funds. They were bleeding, fast, losses, massive ones. That's where Macau came in. I pulled the external financial indicators, cross-referenced transaction patterns. 4 million, gone, just like that. I leaned back again and let out a slow breath. That explained everything. They weren't building anything. They were covering a hole. And they were about to run out of time. I checked the federal schedule. Audit set for Monday morning, full review, no room to hide. They needed cash, fast, liquid, untraceable. That's where the trust came in. Grandfather's fund, clean money, accessible if they could get my authorization. I closed the file and stared at the screen for a moment. Then I made a decision. Not emotional, not reactive, just necessary. I initiated a silent trace, logged every transaction, every approval, every deviation, and I locked it into a package that could be deployed when needed. I didn't confront them, didn't warn them, didn't give them a chance to adjust. I just watched, because people like that don't stop unless you force them to. The watch on my wrist vibrated lightly. Back in the basement, I blinked once and came back to the present, to -142. Almost there. I shifted slightly in the chair and tapped the side of the watch once. The interface flickered, then expanded. No alarms, no errors, clean execution. Good. I moved my thumb across the surface and opened the secondary feed. A video stream appeared. Low light, grainy, but clear enough. Upstairs, living room. They were exactly where I expected them to be. Jocelyn had kicked off her heels and was standing near the bar holding a glass of something expensive. Trent was leaning against the counter, relaxed now. Comfortable. He was laughing. That part almost impressed me. They really thought they were safe. Jocelyn took a sip and shook her head. She'll fold, she said. Give it 10 minutes, Trent smirked. She doesn't have a choice. No signal, no access, no leverage, Jocelyn added. She's just sitting down there with a piece of paper. I watched them in silence. No reaction, just observation. Trent lifted his glass slightly, to easy solutions. Jocelyn clinked hers against it, to finally fixing this mess. I let that sit for a second. Fixing, that's what they called it. I zoomed the feed slightly, picked up audio, clear enough. Jocelyn exhaled slowly. Once we move the funds, we stabilize everything before Monday. Trent nodded. After that, it's clean, right. I leaned back in the chair again. They had no idea the audit already had a starting point. They had no idea their entire operation was already mapped. And they definitely had no idea what 5 minutes in a sealed room actually meant. T-038. The watch gave a faint pulse. Final sync. I didn't look away from the screen. Jocelyn set her glass down and crossed her arms. Honestly, I'm surprised she even pushed back. Trent shrugged. She's always thought she was smarter than she is. That got a small smile out of me, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. T-020, I closed the video feed. No need to keep watching. The outcome was already locked in. T-010. I rested my hands on my knees and sat up slightly. The room felt smaller again, not from pressure, from timing. 005. The watch vibrated once. 003, 002, 001. The screen went blank for half a second, then reset. No timer, no prompt, just a clean interface. Done. I exhaled once slow and steady and let a small smile settle in. They really should have read the audit trail, I said quietly. Then I looked toward the door. Time's up, Major. The second the timer cleared, I felt it before I heard it. A shift. Then everything above me went dead. No music, no voices, no hum from the HVAC system. Total blackout, right on schedule. I stayed seated for half a second longer, letting the system finish its work. Then I stood. Upstairs, the jazz cut off mid-note. I knew that would throw them off more than anything else. People notice silence faster than noise. A beat later, the emergency systems failed to kick in. Also intentional, no backup lighting, no automated alerts, no security response, because I had already rerouted all of it. I walked toward the door, calm, steady, like I wasn't locked in a reinforced basement 5 seconds ago. Above me, the first reaction hit. What the hell just happened? Jocelyn's voice sharp, confused. Footsteps, glass shifting on a surface. Then Trent lower tense now. Power outage. No, Jocelyn snapped. This place has redundancies. Good, she was starting to think. A second passed, then my father's voice cut through loud and commanding. Security. Nothing answered. That was the moment it started to sink in. Security report, he barked again. Still nothing. I stopped about 2 feet from the door and rested my hand lightly against the cold steel. Wait for it. Then it came. Low at first. Distant. A sound most people wouldn't recognize unless they'd heard it before. Rotor blades. Not loud, not obvious. Controlled. Precise. A Black Hawk doesn't announce itself. It arrives. Upstairs, the reaction was immediate. Trent. Do you hear that? Jocelyn didn't answer right away. She knew. My father definitely knew. That's not Trent started. It is my father cut him off. The pitch changed slightly as the aircraft adjusted position above the house. Close now. Very close. Then came the glass. A sharp, violent crack followed by the shatter of reinforced windows, giving way under pressure. Jocelyn screamed. Not controlled, not composed, real. What is happening? She shouted. Footsteps fast now, disorganized. My father again, louder, angrier. Get down. Everyone get down, too late. A second later, flash. Even through the sealed basement door, the light bled through the edges. Then the sound, a sharp concussive pop. Flashbang, not lethal, just enough to disorient. I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second out of habit, even though I couldn't see it directly. Upstairs, everything broke. Voices overlapping, furniture scraping. Someone hit the floor hard. Trent's voice panicked now. What the hell is this? Is this a raid? Jocelyn breathless. No, this can't. Another sound cut through, the front door, not opening, breaking, a heavy impact. Then another, then the unmistakable crack of reinforced wood giving way under force. Boots, multiple, fast, disciplined. Not security, not private contractors. This was trained entry. Federal agents do not move. The command echoed through the house, clear, sharp, no hesitation. I let out a slow breath. Perfect timing. Upstairs, everything shifted from confusion to fear. Real fear. Trent. Jocelyn, what did you do? I didn't. This isn't, she stammered. On your knees, hands where we can see them? More boots. More movement. The low hum of equipment. Then the thin, precise lines of red laser sights cutting through the dark. I didn't need to see it. I could picture it perfectly. Trent froze. Jocelyn too. Because no one argues with that kind of entrance. Not when you don't know who's pointing at you. I said on your knees, a second voice snapped. Heavier. Command presence. That would be the team lead. A pause. Then the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Hands up. Compliance. Fast. They think this is a terrorist raid, I said quietly to myself. Not wrong, just incomplete. Upstairs, my father tried one last time to assert control. "Do you have any idea who you're dealing with?" he shouted. There was a beat of silence. Then the response came back calm and flat. "Yes, sir, we do." That was it. No escalation, no argument, just acknowledgement, which was worse, much worse. I glanced down at my watch. All systems green, connection stable, operation complete, time to step in. I reached toward the door, not the handle, there wasn't one. Instead, I tapped the watch twice in quick succession. A soft vibration confirmed the command. Then a click, subtle, mechanical, from inside the lock, not forced, not broken, opened. I wrapped my fingers around the edge of the door and pulled. It moved smoothly, no resistance. The seal broke with a low hiss as pressure equalized. Fresh air slipped in, along with noise, voices, movement, control. I stepped forward. Up the short set of stairs, one step at a time, no rush, no hesitation. At the top, the scene opened up exactly how I expected. Dark room, broken glass across the floor, furniture pushed out of place. Red laser lines cutting through the space like a grid. Jocelyn on her knees, Trent beside her, hands up, shaking, actually shaking. My father standing a few feet away, rigid, trying to process something he couldn't control. And around them, CID, full tactical gear, weapons up, disciplined spacing, every angle covered, no chaos, just precision. One of the operators turned slightly as I stepped into view. The beam of a weapon light shifted, locked on to me for half a second, then paused. Recognition, immediate. I didn't say anything, didn't need to. Behind me, the basement door stayed open, unlocked, because it was never really a prison, not for me. And in that moment, standing there, while they were all on their knees, I realized something simple. They didn't trap me. They just gave me a controlled environment to finish the job. I stepped fully into the light, and the first thing that hit me was the silence. Not the empty kind from the basement. The controlled kind. Weapons steady, boots planted. Everyone waiting for the next command. A beam of tactical light snapped toward the basement door behind me, then locked onto me again as I moved forward. Upstairs, Jocelyn finally saw it. Or rather, saw me. "Wait," she choked out, then suddenly raised her voice sharp and desperate. "She's down there, my sister. She's trapped in the basement." I didn't stop walking. Her voice climbed higher. "You need to help her. She's been locked in." A couple of the operators didn't even glance at her. They were watching me. That told me everything. I reached the top step and stepped onto the main floor, brushing a bit of dust off my sleeve like I had just come up from storage, not a sealed concrete room. No rush, no panic, no damage. Jocelyn's voice faltered mid-sentence, because now she could see me clearly, standing, calm, unharmed. That didn't fit the story she just told. Trent turned his head slightly, eyes wide, trying to make sense of it. How he didn't finish. Good. I walked a few steps into the room, stopping just short of the line of operators. The lasers never touched me, not once. Behind me, the basement door remained open, unsecured, like it had never been a threat. My father moved first. Of course he did. "Cassidy," he snapped, striding toward me like he could still control this situation by volume alone. He reached for my arm. Didn't get far. One of the operators shifted, instantly blocking him with a solid step forward. "Sir, stay where you are." My father's expression darkened. "Do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" He tried to push past. Bad idea. The operator didn't raise his weapon, didn't escalate. He just stopped him, firm, immovable. My father's voice rose. "I am General Vance. You do not enter my home, detain my family, and point weapons without authorization." No one reacted. Not the way he expected. He turned slightly, scanning the room like he was looking for someone with rank, someone who would recognize him, someone who would fix this. No one moved, because this wasn't his chain of command. I watched him for a second, then looked past him. The team lead stepped forward. You could tell immediately. Posture, pace, control. He didn't rush, didn't posture. He just walked straight toward me. My father turned, stepping into his path. "You need to stand down right now." The team lead didn't even slow down. He reached out and pushed my father aside with one firm motion. Not violent, not aggressive, just decisive. My father stumbled half a step back, caught off guard more than anything. That alone said everything. The man walked past him and stopped directly in front of me. No hesitation, no confusion, just certainty. Then he straightened, sharp, precise, boots aligned, shoulders squared, and he snapped into a full military salute. Clean, by the book. Kuvak daduk kim swat tu zemduk. The words landed heavy in the room. Even before they fully registered, the reaction started. Jocelyn's face went blank. Not angry, not defensive, just empty, like her brain couldn't process what she'd just heard. Director, not clerk, not assistant, not background noise. Director. Trent blinked hard like he was trying to reset his vision. Wait, he muttered, shaking his head slightly. Know that? He looked at me again. Really looked this time. Everything he thought he knew didn't line up anymore. Good. My father didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even blink. For the first time that night, he had nothing. No title, no voice, no control, just silence. I returned the salute, brief, professional, then lowered my hand. At ease, I said. The team lead dropped his salute, immediately shifting back into position. Status, I asked. Perimeter secured. All primary targets contained. No external interference. Clean, efficient. Exactly how it should be. I nodded once, then glanced past him toward Jocelyn and Trent. They were still on their knees, still frozen, still trying to catch up. Jocelyn shook her head slowly. No, this isn't real. I tilted my head slightly. Feels real enough. Her eyes snapped to mine wide now. You're what did he just call you? I didn't answer right away. Didn't need to. Trent swallowed hard. Director of what? That almost made me smile. Almost. My father finally found his voice again, but it came out lower this time. Rougher. What is this? He demanded. I looked at him, held it for a second, then answered. An audit. Simple, accurate, and way too late for him to stop. Jocelyn let out a short, shaky breath. You're lying. I shrugged slightly. About what part? She didn't respond, because she didn't know where to start. Trent looked between us, then at the operators, then back at me. You were in the basement, he said slowly. We locked you in. I nodded. You did. And now you're just... He gestured vaguely at the room, at the team, at everything falling apart around him. Standing here like this was planned, I met his gaze. That hit him harder than anything else. You could see it. The moment the realization settled in, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't a lucky break. This was controlled. From the start. Jocelyn leaned back slightly on her knees like the floor had shifted under her. You're not a clerk, she said quietly. No, I wasn't. I glanced around the room once more. Broken glass, weapons steady, targets contained. Chain of command established. Everything exactly where it needed to be. Then I looked back at her. No, I said. I'm not. I lowered my hand and let the room settle. No one moved. No one spoke. The energy shifted without anyone announcing it. The chaos was over. The control was already established. Now it was about proof. Jocelyn broke first. She pushed herself up slightly from her knees, not fully standing, just enough to look like she still had some authority left. This is a mistake, she said quickly, her voice shaking but trying to stay sharp. She's not who she says she is. No one responded. She turned toward the team lead, desperation starting to bleed through. You need to listen to me. My sister, she's unstable. She's been under stress. She makes things up when she feels threatened. I watched her. Same tone she used earlier, just louder now. She hacked something or she manipulated. Jocelyn kept going, words stacking too fast. This is a misunderstanding. You're acting on false information. The team lead didn't even look at her. That hit harder than any response. She shifted again, voice cracking. You can't just come in here and you're done talking, I said calmly. That stopped her. Not because I raised my voice. Because I didn't. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small device. Plain, matte. About the size of a deck of cards. No branding, no lights, just hardware. Trent saw it first. His entire body tensed. What is that? He asked, already knowing he didn't want the answer. I held it loosely in my hand. 5 minutes, I said. Jocelyn stared at me confused. I didn't look at her. Those 5 minutes you gave me downstairs, I continued steady and clear, weren't for thinking. I tapped the edge of the device, once with my thumb. They were for work. Silence. Real silence this time. I lifted my wrist slightly, letting the watch catch the light. The transmitter in this watch doesn't just track location, I said. It establishes a secure breach channel. Trent shook his head immediately. No, that's not possible. There's no signal down there. I looked at him. You're thinking commercial infrastructure. That shut him up, I continued, voice flat. Encrypted IP routing. Direct relay through military satellites. No dependency on your house systems. Jocelyn's breathing changed. Faster now, uneven. While I was sitting in your basement, I said this device was decrypting your server access, mapping your network, and pulling everything tied to your company. Trent took a step back on his knees like distance would help. No, he said again, but quieter. No, you didn't. I met his eyes. I did. I walked over to the glass table in the center of the room, the same one they were standing near earlier, the same one they thought they controlled. I placed the device down gently. Then I reached for a folder one of the agents handed me. Thick, heavy. I didn't rush. I just set it down on the table and slid it forward. The sound of paper against glass cut through the room. That, I said, is your last 72 hours. Trent didn't move. Jocelyn didn't breathe. I opened the folder, pages of financial logs, transaction records, contract approvals, every piece clean, organized, undeniable. I tapped one page. Offshore transfer chain, I said. Another, shell company routing. Another, unauthorized contract approvals under your authorization major. Jocelyn flinched, not visibly to everyone, but I saw it. I flipped another page and turned it slightly so my father could see. Armor batch failure report. Syria. That one landed. Hard. My father stepped forward without realizing it. His eyes locked onto the document. He read just enough, then stopped. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. I closed the folder halfway and rested my hand on top of it. This is the part where you say it's fabricated, I said calmly. Jocelyn shook her head immediately. It is fabricated. It has to be. You can't just... I tapped the device again. A soft click. Then audio filled the room. Clear, unfiltered. Her voice. Sign it. No one cares about a few soldiers anyway. The words hung there, sharp, ugly, permanent. Jocelyn froze, completely, like someone hit pause on her. Trent looked at her slowly, then at me, then back at her. That's not, she started, but nothing followed, because there was nothing to say. The recording continued for a few seconds. Trent's voice this time, low, pressuring, controlled. Then it cut. Silence, heavy, unavoidable. I didn't say anything, didn't need to. The room did the work for me. My father's face changed. It wasn't subtle, color drained, fast, from red to pale in seconds. His jaw tightened, but not in anger, in realization. He looked at Jocelyn, really looked at her, not as the decorated officer, not as the pride of the Pentagon, just as the person standing there. And for the first time he saw it. She tried to hold his gaze, couldn't. Her eyes dropped. That was the moment everything broke. Not the raid, not the arrest. This. Truth. Clean. Recorded. Undeniable. I closed the folder fully and pushed it across the table. Financial fraud, I said. Then I tapped the device once more. Conspiracy. Another tap. Endangerment of active duty personnel. I let the word sit. Then added one more. Betrayal. No one argued that one. Trent lowered his head slightly, hands still up, breathing uneven. Jocelyn didn't move at all, and my father, he just stood there, silent. Because there was nothing left to defend. No rank, no title, no speech, just evidence. And the reality that it came from the one person he thought didn't matter. I picked up the device and slipped it back into my pocket, then looked at them one more time. You didn't need a weapon, I said quietly. A small pause, just bad decisions. The silence didn't last long. It never does when people realize they're out of options. Trent broke first. You could see it happen in real time. His breathing changed. His eyes stopped focusing on one thing and started jumping. Door agents me the folder on the table. Calculating, failing. Then something snapped. He lunged. Fast, desperate. No plan behind it. Straight at me. Not smart. Two operators moved before he even got halfway. One caught him high, the other went low. They drove him into the floor hard enough to knock the air out of his lungs. A sharp impact. Glass rattled on the table. Trent hit the ground face first. Don't, he tried, but the rest got crushed out of him as a knee pinned his back. His arms were yanked behind him. Metal snapped into place. Cuffs tight, no hesitation. No sudden movements, one of the agents said calm and flat. Trent struggled once. Just once. then stopped, because he knew that was it. The room reset around him. Jocelyn stared at the scene like it didn't belong to her life. Then it hit, not slow, all at once. Wait, no, she said, pushing herself forward on her knees. You can't do this. You don't understand what's happening. No one answered. She turned sharply, grabbing onto my father's arm like it was the last solid thing left in the room. Dad. Her voice cracked. Dad, call someone, call the secretary, call anyone, fix this. She pulled harder. You can't just stand there. My father didn't move right away. He was still staring at the folder on the table, at the pages, at the reality. Dad, Jocelyn's voice broke again. She's lying, she's twisting things. You know me. You know I wouldn't. He slowly looked down at her, and for a second there was something there, not authority, not pride, just hesitation. Then it disappeared, because deep down he already knew. But he wasn't ready to accept it. Not yet. He pulled his arm free from her grip. Not violently, just enough. Then he reached into his jacket and took out his phone. That part got everyone's attention. Even the agents shifted slightly, watching. Jocelyn latched onto it immediately. Yes, call him. Call General Whitaker. He'll fix this. He has to. My father didn't respond. He was already dialing. The room went quiet again, but this time it wasn't controlled. It was tense. Fragile. The call connected. He didn't bother with small talk. This is General Vance, he said, voice firm again, pulling whatever authority he had left into it. I need immediate clarification on an unauthorized operation at my residence. He hit speaker. Of course he did. This wasn't just a call. It was a move. A last attempt to take control back in front of everyone. A voice came through, older, sharper, no wasted time. I'm aware. That stopped him for half a second. But he pushed through. Then you understand the severity of the situation, my father continued. Armed agents have breached my home and detained my family without authorized. The voice cut in. Flat, clean, no room for interpretation. My father froze, just slightly, then tightened his grip on the phone. I'm going to need you to clarify that statement, he said, slower now. A pause. Then the voice came back. Cold. Vance, I'm the one who signed the order. The air shifted. You could feel it. Jocelyn stopped breathing. Trent went still under the agent's weight. I didn't move. My father's jaw locked. Signed what order? The response came without hesitation. The one authorizing Director Cassidy to investigate your daughter. Silence. Heavy. Complete. My father didn't blink. Didn't speak. Just stood there holding the phone like it suddenly weighed too much. The voice continued. You are currently interfering with a federal operation. Each word landed clean. Precise. And from where I'm standing, he added, you're dangerously close to obstruction. Jocelyn shook her head slowly. No, that's not. My father didn't look at her. He couldn't. Sir, he said into the phone, voice lower. Now strained, there has to be some kind of mistake. No, the voice replied. The mistake was yours. That one hit. Hard. You chose to ignore the warning signs, the voice went on. You chose to elevate someone without verifying the damage she was causing. My father's grip tightened again, but his voice didn't come back, because there was nothing left to argue. Here's what's going to happen, the voice said. You're going to step back. You're going to let this operation proceed, and you're going to remove your rank from the situation before I have someone come down there and do it for you. A pause. Then quieter, but worse. Am I clear? My father didn't answer. He didn't have one. The silence stretched. Then the phone slipped, just slightly, but enough. It fell from his hand and hit the floor with a sharp crack. No one moved to pick it up. The call was still active. The voice on the other end waited. Then disconnected. Clean, final. My father stood there staring at nothing. For the first time in my life, I saw him without control. No commands, no authority, no next move. Just exposed. Jocelyn slowly let go of him. Her hands dropped into her lap. Her shoulders sank. Trent didn't even try to move anymore. And the room belonged to me now. I looked at all three of them, then at the agents, then back at them. You should have stopped earlier, I said. Not loud, not harsh, just true, because this was never about power. It was about consequences, and they were finally catching up. I watched the silence settle after the call dropped. No one rushed to fill it. No one tried to fix anything, because there was nothing left to fix. The agents moved next. Not fast, not aggressive, just efficient. One of them stepped forward and pulled out a document. Major Jocelyn Vance, he said, voice steady official. You are under arrest for violations of federal military law, including fraud, conspiracy, and actions endangering national security. Each word landed clean. No emotion, no hesitation. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, I didn't do anything, Jocelyn snapped, cutting him off, her voice breaking under the pressure. This is wrong. This is completely wrong. No one stopped reading. No one acknowledged her, because procedure doesn't pause for panic. Her composure cracked all at once. Tears came fast, messy, uncontrolled. Mascara streaked down her face, cutting through the perfect image she spent years building. This isn't happening, she said, shaking her head over and over. This isn't real. 2 agents stepped closer. She backed up slightly on her knees. Wait, don't touch me, she said, her voice rising again. You don't understand. You're making a mistake. One of them reached for her wrist. She pulled back, harder this time. I said, don't touch me, she shouted. That didn't change anything. The second agent stepped in, firm, controlled, no aggression, just inevitability. That's when she broke completely. Her eyes snapped to me, and everything shifted. Cassidy, she said, voice cracking, desperate now. Cassidy, please. She moved forward on her knees, ignoring the agents for a second, hands reaching toward me like that would fix it. Please, you don't have to do this, she said, tears running freely now. We're family. I'm your sister. I didn't move. She grabbed onto my sleeve, tight, like she was holding onto the last thing keeping her from falling apart. You can stop this, she said. Just tell them. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. You have that authority, right? You can fix this. I looked down at her hand on my arm. Didn't pull away, didn't react. Just let her say it. Cassidy, please, she whispered now, voice almost gone. You're not going to send your own sister to a military prison. The room stayed quiet. Everyone watching, no one interrupting. Because this part wasn't about law anymore. It was about truth. I slowly crouched down in front of her. Not to help, not to comfort, just to be at eye level. For a second she looked relieved, like she thought this was the moment everything turned. Like I was about to help her up. Fix it, undo it. She smiled through the tears. Small, hopeful. That was her mistake. I reached forward, not for her hand, not for her shoulder, for her collar. My fingers closed around the metal insignia on her uniform. Major. I held it there for a second, then pulled. Hard. The fabric shifted. The pin snapped loose with a sharp click. The insignia came off clean. I held it up between us. She stared at it, then at me, confused, broken. You're not my sister, I said. Clear, slow, no anger, just truth. Her face collapsed. And you don't deserve to wear this uniform. I let the insignia drop. It hit the floor with a small metallic sound that echoed louder than it should have. You signed off on equipment that failed in the field, I continued. You pushed contracts that put soldiers at risk. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. You traded their safety for money, I said. For comfort. For things that don't matter. I leaned in slightly, just enough for her to hear every word. I've spent nights making sure people like them come home alive, I said quietly. And you turned that into a transaction. Tears streamed down her face. She shook her head weakly. I didn't. You did. No hesitation. No softness. You don't get to rewrite it now. I straightened up slowly. The agent stepped in again. This time she didn't resist, didn't pull away, didn't fight. Her hands were brought behind her back. Cuffs clicked into place. Final. She let out a small broken sound. Not loud. Not dramatic, just empty. Trent didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the floor, because he knew. There was no version of this where he walked away. My father still hadn't moved. He was watching everything, every second, every word, and he couldn't stop it, couldn't interrupt, couldn't command his way out of it, because this wasn't about rank anymore. It was about consequence. Jocelyn was pulled to her feet, unsteady, her uniform still perfect everywhere except the missing insignia. That one small gap said more than anything else in the room. She looked at me one last time, like she was hoping for something, anything. I didn't give it to her, because there was nothing left to give. As they started to move her toward the door, I spoke again. Calm, flat. You're not a victim, I said. She stopped for half a second. Then I added one more thing. You're a liability. That was the last piece, the final shift. from person to consequence. And just like that, everything she built, every title, every badge, every ounce of respect was gone. The sound of boots on marble faded as they dragged Trent out first. He didn't fight anymore, didn't say a word, just walked like someone who finally understood there was no version of this that ended well for him. Jocelyn followed, slower, unsteady. The cuffs stayed tight behind her back as two agents guided her toward the door. She glanced back once, not at me, at the room, at the broken glass, the overturned chairs, the space where everything used to feel controlled. Then she was gone, the front door closed behind them. And just like that, silence. Real silence this time, no tension, no movement. Just the aftermath. The agents moved out quickly, clearing the space with the same precision they came in with. No wasted steps, no unnecessary noise. Within seconds, the house emptied. Lights were still out. Only the faint spill of exterior floodlights crept in through the shattered windows. I stood where I was, didn't rush, didn't follow. Because there was one thing left. My father, he hadn't moved. Not since the phone dropped. He stood in the middle of the room, shoulders slightly lowered, staring at nothing in particular. For the first time in my life, he looked old. Not physically, but in a way that comes from losing something you thought was permanent. I walked slowly across the room, my steps steady against the cracked glass. He noticed me this time, turned slightly. His eyes met mine. No anger, no command, just something unfamiliar, uncertainty. His voice, when it came, didn't sound like his. "What are you going to do?" he asked, quiet, careful, like he wasn't sure how much authority he had left in the question. I didn't answer right away. He swallowed once, then added almost under his breath, "With the house, with the trust." That part mattered to him. Of course it did. The house was status, the trust was control, the last pieces of something he could still hold on to. I looked down, the paper was still there, half crumpled on the floor where it had fallen earlier, the same document they tried to force me to sign. I bent down and picked it up, smoothed it out between my fingers. Creases still visible, edges slightly bent. He watched me carefully. And for a moment, just a moment, hope showed up. Small, fragile, like maybe this could still be negotiated. Like maybe I would fix it. Like maybe I would choose family. I looked at the paper, then at him, then back at the paper again, and I smiled, not cold, not angry, just clear. Then I tore it in half. The sound was sharp in the quiet room, clean, final. His expression dropped immediately, not shock, not anger, just understanding. I let the two pieces fall. "They don't need your signature anymore," I said calmly. His brow tightened slightly. "What does that mean?" I met his eyes. "It means you're late." That landed. He straightened, a little instinct kicking in. "Explain." So I did. "I froze the trust last week," I said. "Full audit lock, no withdrawals, no transfers." He stared at me, processing, slow, then faster. "And where is it now?" he asked. "Reallocated." A pause. Then I added veteran support fund, direct pipeline, clean oversight. That hit harder than anything else tonight, because it wasn't just control, it was permanent. "You moved it?" he asked, voice tightening. "Yes." Without consulting me, I held his gaze. "You weren't part of the chain." Silence again. He looked around the room slowly, at the damage, at the emptiness, at everything that used to mean something. "And the house?" he asked. That one came out quieter. I glanced toward the shattered window, the lights outside, the vehicles, the end of something. "Asset forfeiture team arrives in the morning," I said. "Property gets sealed, evaluated, liquidated for restitution." He didn't react right away, just stood there, then finally a small exhale, like something inside him gave up. "This was our home," he said. I tilted my head slightly. "No," I said. "It was a cover." He didn't argue, because he couldn't, not anymore. I took a step back, then another, putting distance between us. He watched me, still trying to find something, some version of control, some version of authority, anything. "You always said I was useless," I said. My voice stayed level. No anger, no bitterness, just fact. He didn't respond, didn't deny it. So I continued. "You said I didn't contribute, that I didn't matter." I paused, then gave him the truth. "You were right." That got his attention. His eyes snapped back to mine, confused, for a second. Then I finished it. There's nothing left here that needs me. That was the difference, not weakness, absence. I turned and walked toward the door. No one stopped me. No one followed. Outside, the night air felt different, cleaner. The black SUV waited at the curb, engine running. Standard issue, no markings. I didn't look back right away. I stepped down the front path, past the broken glass, past the lights, past everything that used to define that house. Then I stopped for half a second, turned just enough to see him, still standing there, in the doorway, alone, no rank, no family, no control. Just a man in a dark house with nothing left to hold. I got into the SUV, the door shut with a solid, quiet click. And as the vehicle pulled away, I didn't look back again, because some endings don't need closure, they just need distance. Before I go, tell me this: if you were in my place, would you have walked away the same way? Or would you have given them one more chance? And if stories like this hit close to home, make sure you're here for the next one. The city lights slid across the window as the SUV moved, and for the first time that night, everything was quiet. No shouting, no commands. No one trying to prove anything, just me and the aftermath. People think power is loud. It's not. If you watched everything that happened tonight, and all you saw was the raid of the arrest the moment things fell apart, you missed the point. Because none of that was power. That was the result. Power happened long before that. It happened when I didn't react. It happened when I didn't argue. It happened when I let them believe I was exactly who they thought I was. Most people don't understand that. They think if someone disrespects you, you have to respond immediately. You have to correct them. You have to show them who you are. I didn't. Not because I couldn't, because I didn't need to. There's a difference. Jocelyn needed attention. She needed validation. She needed the room to agree with her. That's why she stood under those lights wearing her rank like it was her identity. Trent needed control. That's why he talked like everything was already decided. And my father, he needed authority. That's why he raised his voice every time something slipped out of his hands. They all had one thing in common. They needed people to see their power. I didn't. Because real power doesn't ask for attention. It controls outcomes. That's it. You don't need to win every conversation. You don't need to prove your worth in every room. You don't even need people to like you. You just need to understand where things are going and decide how they end. That's what I did. When Jocelyn cornered me at that party, I could have exposed her right there. I had the data. I had the proof. I could have ended it in front of everyone. But I didn't. Because that wouldn't have changed anything. It would have turned into noise, arguments, denials, damage control. And people like her survive in chaos. So I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, because I was patient. There's a difference between silence and strategy. A lot of people confuse the two. Silence out of fear, that costs you control. Silence with intent, that builds it. When I didn't react, they thought they were winning. That was their second mistake. The first one was underestimating me. The second was assuming I needed to fight on their terms. I didn't. I chose the timing. I chose the setting. I chose the outcome. By the time they locked me in that basement, the decision was already made. They just didn't know it yet. That's something you need to understand. If you're constantly reacting, you're not in control. If you're always defending yourself, explaining yourself, proving yourself, you're playing someone else's game. And you're already behind. I've seen it everywhere. Workplaces, families, relationships. Someone gets dismissed, ignored, talked over, and their instinct is to push back immediately, to argue, to make noise, to be seen. And sometimes that works. Most of the time it doesn't, because you're reacting emotionally in a system you don't control. That's not power. That's survival. Real power is quiet until it isn't. It builds in the background. It watches patterns. It waits for leverage. Then it moves once and ends the conversation completely. That's what happened tonight. Not because I'm smarter, not because I'm better, because I understood one thing they didn't. You don't win by being louder. You win by being right at the right time, with the right proof, in the right position. Everything else is just noise. I leaned my head back against the seat and looked out at the road again. There's something else people don't talk about. Power doesn't feel dramatic when you have it. It feels quiet, controlled, almost boring. No adrenaline, no rush, just clarity. By the time that door opened and I walked out of that basement, there was nothing left to figure out. No decisions to make, no risks to take. It was already done. That's the part most people don't see. They see the moment things explode. They don't see the hours, days, weeks before that, when everything was being built. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. Not, how do I prove them wrong? Not, how do I show them what I'm worth? Ask this instead. Am I trying to look powerful or actually be in control? Because those are not the same thing. If you're chasing recognition, you'll always depend on other people. If you're building control, you don't need permission. And once you understand that, everything changes. I didn't feel relief when it was over. That's the part no one tells you. You think doing the right thing is going to feel clean, clear, like a win. It doesn't. It feels quiet. And sometimes, it feels heavy. Because the hardest part of everything that happened that night wasn't the raid. It wasn't the evidence. It wasn't even watching everything fall apart. It was saying no to someone who used to be family. People like to believe that family means loyalty, that blood automatically equals trust, that no matter what happens you protect each other. That sounds good. Until it isn't true. Jocelyn didn't see me as family when she signed off on contracts that could have gotten people killed. She didn't think about blood when she stood over me in that basement and told me no one would come. She didn't hesitate when she tried to force me into covering her mistakes. But the second everything turned, that's when she remembered. That's when it became, we're sisters. You don't have to do this. Family should stick together. That's not loyalty. That's leverage. And a lot of people don't recognize the difference until it's too late. Here's something you need to understand. Family is not a free pass. It's not protection from consequences. And it definitely doesn't mean you owe someone your silence when they're doing something wrong. Because the moment you protect someone who is hurting others, you're not neutral. You're part of it. That's a hard truth. Most people don't want to hear it. They'd rather believe that staying quiet keeps the peace, that avoiding conflict makes things better. It doesn't. It just delays the damage, and usually makes it worse. I had a choice that night, not between right and wrong. That part was already clear. The real choice was this. Do I protect the truth or protect the relationship? And those two things were not compatible anymore. That's where most people get stuck. Because cutting someone off, especially family, feels extreme. It feels like failure, like you didn't try hard enough. Like you're the one breaking something that should have been unbreakable. But here's the reality. Some relationships don't break when you walk away. They were already broken. You just stopped pretending they weren't. Jocelyn didn't lose me that night. She lost me the moment she decided her comfort mattered more than other people's lives. I just acknowledged it. That's what boundaries really are. Not walls, not punishment, just clarity. This is where I stop. This is what I don't accept. This is what I won't carry for you. And here's the part people struggle with the most. Boundaries don't require agreement. You don't need the other person to understand. You don't need them to accept it. And you definitely don't need their approval. Jocelyn didn't agree with me. She didn't understand. She thought she could still talk her way out of it. That didn't change anything. Because boundaries aren't negotiations. They're decisions. And once you make them, you follow through. No explaining, no backtracking, no guilt. That last one matters. Because guilt is the tool people use when control starts slipping. Think about it. The moment someone can't force you anymore, they try to make you feel bad instead. You're selfish. You're overreacting. You're tearing the family apart. It sounds familiar for a reason, because it works. A lot of people fold right there, not because they're wrong, because they feel guilty. I didn't. Not because I'm cold, because I knew exactly what was real and what wasn't. That guilt, it wasn't mine. It belonged to her. She just didn't want to carry it alone, so she tried to hand it to me. I didn't take it. And that's something you need to learn. Just because someone tries to give you responsibility for their actions doesn't mean you have to accept it. You're allowed to say no, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it changes everything, especially if it changes everything. Because if the only way a relationship survives is by you sacrificing your standards, that's not a relationship. That's control. I've seen people stay in situations like that for years. Family members who manipulate, who take advantage, who cross lines over and over again. And every time the same excuse shows up, that's just how they are. No, that's what you've been tolerating. There's a difference. And the moment you stop tolerating it, things change. Not always in a way that feels good, but in a way that's real. I looked out the window again, watching the city move past. There's no clean version of what I did. No version where everyone understands. No version where it all works out. But there is one thing I know for sure. I didn't betray my values to protect someone else's mistakes. And that matters more than keeping a relationship that only existed when I stayed quiet. So here's what I want you to think about. Not what you would have done in my position, but what you're tolerating in your own life right now. Who are you protecting? That wouldn't protect you. Where are you staying silent? Just to keep things comfortable. And the real question, if someone only respects you when you go along with them, is that really family? Didn't feel like I won. That's the truth. The SUV kept moving, the city fading behind me, and everything that just happened. It didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a decision, a final one. People think justice comes with closure. It doesn't. It comes with cost. And nobody talks about that part. They see the ending, the arrest, the exposure, the moment everything falls into place. And they assume that's where it all gets better. But that's not where it gets better. That's where it gets quiet. Because when everything is done, when there's no more action left, no more decisions to make, you're left with what it cost you. I did the right thing. I know that. There's no doubt in my mind. I stopped something that would have hurt more people. I exposed something that needed to be exposed. I protected lives that mattered more than reputation. That part is clear. But clarity doesn't cancel consequence. I didn't just shut down an operation. I ended a family. There's no clean way to say that. No version where that sounds acceptable. But it's real. And if you've ever had to make a decision like that, where doing the right thing means losing something important, then you already understand this part. Doing the right thing doesn't always feel right. Sometimes it feels like loss. Because it is, I leaned my head slightly against the window, watching the reflection shift as we passed through another set of lights. People like to believe that if something is broken, it can be fixed. That if you just talk enough, try hard enough, forgive enough, you can rebuild it. That's not always true. Some things aren't meant to be repaired. Not because you didn't try, because they were built on something that doesn't hold. What I had with them, it wasn't stable. It just looked like it was. Authority covered it, status covered it, routine covered it. But underneath all of that, there was nothing solid. And when pressure hit, it collapsed exactly the way it was always going to. That's something you need to understand. Closure isn't something you're owed. It's something you create. And sometimes the way you create it is by walking away without looking back. That's what I did. Not because I didn't care, because I cared enough to not pretend anymore. There's a difference. A lot of people stay stuck in situations long after they've already ended. They wait for an apology, for acknowledgement, for some kind of moment where everything makes sense again. Sometimes that moment never comes. And waiting for it just keeps you tied to something that's already over. I didn't wait. I made the decision, and I moved. That's the part people struggle with. Moving forward without resolution, without everyone agreeing, without everything feeling complete. But here's the truth. You don't need everyone to understand your decision for it to be the right one. You don't need approval to move on. And you don't need to go back just because something used to matter. What matters is what's real now, not what it used to be. I thought about that as the car slowed slightly, turning onto a quieter road. The city noise faded. Everything felt more distant. There's another part to this people don't talk about. After something like that, you don't go back to who you were before. You can't. That version of you existed in a different reality, with different assumptions, different trust, different expectations. And once those are gone, you don't rebuild the same life. You build a different one. That doesn't mean worse. It means honest, and that matters more. Because a life built on truth, even if it's harder, is still stronger than one built on something you have to constantly ignore. I didn't lose everything. It might look like that from the outside, but I didn't. I lost what wasn't real. That's not the same thing. What I kept was clarity, control, and the ability to move forward without carrying something that was never mine to begin with. That's worth more than anything I left behind. So here's what I want you to think about. Not the story, not what I did. Think about your own life. Where are you holding on to something that already ended? Where are you waiting for closure that may never come? Where are you staying calm? Just because walking away feels too final. Because sometimes final is exactly what you need. Not for them, for you, and here's the real question. If doing the right thing cost you everything you thought mattered, would you still do it? If your answer is yes, then you're already stronger than you think. And if it's no, then maybe it's time to figure out why.
Final note. This story is a work of fiction, but the valuable lessons we discuss are entirely real and continue to happen to many people every day. If this style isn't for you, that's perfectly okay. Please feel free to look for other content that better suits your needs.